Welcome back to the Eric Krown crypto channel. Wishing you a happy early start to this nice little bit of a later Thursday morning over here. I've been in the midst of some very hefty and hot backtesting right now, of which now is the time to get a little bit more excited as we do observe price action doing some actual new things, of which that is very likely going to lead towards major moves in probably November, if I had to guess. Now, November also has a lot of catalysts as well, as far as just fundamentals going on. You got FOMC meeting in early November, as well as other things. And so I wanted to follow up on the greater picture, kind of heading into like the meat of November. Other than that, I wanted to give notice to the current Bybit promotion still going on. They're offering 0% on maker fees for both spot and derivative orders there, with the link in the description below. All right, sweet. Let's just jump right on into it. I wanted to start off first with the Dixie Hopium. It continues to play out, which is good, which is good. I suppose better than not, at least if you want to be bullish. And in this case, yes, there are multiple things that are extremely important right here on the higher term timeframes. And I suspect that the pullback does continue on the higher term timeframes. Now we'll talk about lower term timeframes in a little bit, as they are a little bit different. But in this case, first and foremost, volatility on the weekly, which is going to be closing tomorrow, is looking like it's very likely to go into a contraction phase. So whenever we observe two extremes on volatility, especially on a higher term timeframe like this, it is a very good indication of a counter move likely incoming. Now, when I say counter move, I don't mean to confuse that with a macro reversal here. That's possible, but I would certainly not say that at the outset. This thing is, still long-term macro bullish, but that could play out over the course of years rather than, in this case, we're probably looking at like the next month, maybe 2 months of price action. On top of the weekly volatility going into a likely contraction phase, we do also see 4 drives of regular bearish divergence on the weekly RSI, plus a bearish engulfing from last week's closure, plus the weekly jewel also giving downside signals here as well. Actually, a rather powerful one, dare I say. And so, yes, I do suspect that this does come down further into the month of November. Short term, if we go down to the lower term timeframes here, could very easily have a bounce. I mean like a daily, could very easily have a bounce, but ultimately very, very likely to come down to the 21 exponential moving average on the weekly here, which is about $1.08.5, probably early next week or sometime next week, early November, something like that. At that point, I would be expecting another bounce, so likely does correlate with the pullback on general markets. And then, because we do have 4 drives of bearish divergence, because we do have an actual jewel major signal right here, this, if it does fail that 108.5 after a bit of a bounce, I would be looking significantly further down, somewhere between about $1.04 to $1.05 or so, within like the next month and a half, or maybe month to 2 months. I mean, this is a weekly time frame after all. So we are looking at very likely an extended pullback here. On top of that, I do want to reiterate my stance. Long-term on the macro, I'm still have to be bullish on a chart that, looks like this on a quarterly, or let's even go to a 6-month time frame. Still going to be bullish on that one long-term, but that could, like I said, take years to play out. All right, sweet. So now that we've gotten through that, let's go through the lower-term timeframes over here on CME starting off. And what do we have? Well, short-term ranges, how are they looking? Well, it's kind of the same thing as yesterday. To the upside, we do see short-term, short-term. So I'm just speaking about short-term right now. We see the 200-simple moving average on the 12-hour time frame coming in right around $21,000, which is gathering the current wick highs thus far on this rally. So I do look at that as a nice short-term sort of short-term sort of range high, probably relevant for a 4-hour time frame on closure, meaning that it will be resolved to the upside if Bitcoin does close above there on CME on a 4-hour time frame. Very looking like extension towards the 0.5 after that, somewhere between about 21,300 to 21,500. By contrast to the downside, what's the bottom side of the downside range here? Well, it'd basically be the same area as yesterday's short-term time frame upside range, which is about 20,500 or so. That is to say that a closure below there, and then yes, I would say that that's the first major warning signal that you could see to a potential trap. Now, I say potential trap because it's, there's always potential for a trap move, obviously, but what's important is to clarify what actually confirms that. So that'd be the first major warning signal, fully confirmed, and you can say goodbye to any sort of an extended rally anywhere below $20,000 basically, even on a tick, I imagine, especially on a closure. even on like a medium term time frame, that would be rather nasty. Anyways, until that happens though, Bitcoin still has higher lows here and has broken above the month-long highs that we've been seeing basically since September actually. So that is of interest. Anyways, what else do we have? Well, let's now go to the short-term time frame stochastic momentum, see where it's kind of pivoting around. 12-hour time frame is going to be pivoted at 20,100, meaning that it is to the upside as long as Bitcoin is above that level on a closing basis. 6-hour time frame is also going to be actually turning down if Bitcoin does close below 20,850, and it is in the critical zone, I should add. 4-hour time frame is also going to be turning down, same area in the critical zone, 20,800. 3-hour time frame is certainly very likely, is down as well. 20,900 going to be the pivot, and hourly is also down below 20,835. So it's just like yesterday, which I was certainly wrong about. I'd be looking for a little bit of sideways, a little bit of downside. I mean, we did get a little bit of sideways and downside yesterday, but ultimately, I'd say that this is probably the area to be looking for. The question is, how far does Bitcoin come down, and do I turn into the boy who cried wolf, looking for a pullback when it's just sideways essentially? Definitely possible. At the end of the day, these are very, very short term compared to what we're going to be looking at in a second here. But ultimately, first major warning signal below 20,500, full trap confirmed below 20,000 bucks. That would be extremely, extremely nasty. Until then, short term, a little bit of sideways and down is certainly fine as we kind of wrap up this week. All right, sweet. So now that we've got that, let's get into the fun stuff, which is right on over here. And this is the big one. This is the one that I've really been waiting for quite some time. And this is going to be the daily CME chart. This is volatility versus momentum signature. Volatility represented by the BBWP indicator over here. And basically, we are seeing expansion. So let me once again explain the signal, because why the hell not? And it is this. Anytime that the daily volatility on CME gets to extreme lows, which are defined as below 10 percentile or more, the expansion phase from those extreme lows, which obviously naturally follows, has led to an average move over the full history of CME's existence of about 24.25%. Upon validation of the volatility confirmation, the average days taken till the next major high or low has been about 2.5 weeks or 16 days. And the stochastic oscillator has been correct in getting the direction of that volatility expansion 83.33% of the time. So as of right now, we do have all of the things needed for a confirmation of the volatility component right here. We have 1, BBWP with a positive slope. 2, BBWP above the moving average, both having a positive slope actually. And then 3, BBWP is above on a closing basis, especially the 10 percentile critical region marker. So this signal is now in action, and we can now go reference the daily stochastic direction, which is obviously to the upside and has been basically since the 17th, so about 10 days ago. So statistically speaking, that was you theoretically could have front run it over here, but again, without the volatility component, it is risky, obviously. So you can kind of see the give and the go, and this is just comes down to preferences, obviously. In this case, the daily stochastic momentum pivot is at 19,330. That is to say that as long as Bitcoin is above there for today's daily closure on CME, momentum remains to the upside, and well, probabilities remain in favor of upside. Now, when we look at a probability of 83.33%, that's obviously very, very high in that direction, of course. It is still not a certainty. And I would say that one thing that I have observed is that this should line up with the 2-day and the 5-day signatures. So we'll go into those very briefly as well, and then much more in depth over the weekend, because I don't want to make this video too long. But in this case, we do see that, yes, it is to the upside. And, we'd probably be looking over like the next 2.5 weeks, for this move to essentially occur. So 2.5 weeks, I'm just looking at my calendar right now, that'd put us into like the early third week of November, basically. Somewhere between like the 10th and the 16th, let's say. Somewhere around there would be about right. Anyways, you can also see that I've taken a first standard deviation measurement of what we expect on the average move. So it gives us some areas of interest in this case, to the upside, so that's going to be 15% on the lower end. And the first standard deviation, I should explain, represents where we expect 68% of the results to kind of fall between. The average move is again 24.25 or so. And the top side of the first standard deviation is about 33.3. So looking at these numbers right here, let's see. 15% puts you at about 21.5. Very interesting. That lines up with the next major area if Bitcoin does get that short-term breakout. 24% puts you at about 23.5 or so, and 33% puts you at about 25-ish, basically the summer highs as well. So I thought that that was interesting, natural confluence with other technicals as well, which is typically a good thing for those levels. And I suspect that is just what it is. So what would invalidate the signal? Well, the signal is validated in and of itself. Like I said, a trap would be validated below 20,000 bucks, especially big warning flag below 20,500 on a 4-hour closing basis. So let's now go to the 5-day time frame, which is actually closing tonight, I believe. Let's go over here to my 5-day chart. I believe it's here. Yes, it is. Okay, and so I wanted to address the 5-day because the 5-day is very, very interesting to me. A lot of the times you will see naturally these higher term timeframes line up with each other on these major moves. And in this case, the 5-day timeframe is also going into extreme lows as far as volatility contraction. To put this in perspective, we are comparable to 2020 lows that we saw in June, July before a humongous breakout to the upside, and also comparable to the October, November lows in 2018 before the tremendous breakdown. We're talking about like 50% moves right here. So really, really big stuff, obviously. In this case, the 5-day is obviously not going to be expanding anytime soon. It's probably going to spend some time at the lows here. So the question is, to me, is basically how much or could the 5-day basically turn against the daily, and you get maybe an extension on this rally, could easily go up to 21.5 or so, or more than that. But does it ultimately turn into what would be a higher term time frame trap? Definitely possible here. So let's just kind of review the stats on this one. As far as the stats go, the average move is about 42.35%. Average days taken is about 37 days. So we're looking, about a month, a little over a month from signal given, which the signal is not given right now, by the way. Anyways, in this case, the 5-day stochastic oscillator is to the upside, even playing out a bit of a trend line regression bounce right here as well. Now you'll notice that you do have an opposing one on the other side as well, which I thought was interesting to hear, but 5-day stochastic momentum remains to the upside as long as Bitcoin is above 18,750 for today's closure in 14 hours, 53 minutes and 20 seconds. So here's the thing. This one, again, is not active. But if you do see this start to get eaten up while the daily kind of flails around these current levels, and especially if it were to come back down below about 20,000 bucks, you're probably going to see this one turn against price action. That's probably the biggest threat of a major trap that I can that I can see right now. Again, it'd probably happen in November if it's going to be happening at all. And it would be really fucking nasty, most likely as well. A 40% move or so, or around a 40% move, puts Bitcoin in the mid to low teens. If it were to occur to the upside, which I think is obviously what the Boo laws want, that would put Bitcoin above summer highs, which means that it probably even, travels higher than there over time too. So anyways, that's kind of what's at stake right now. That's how the signals kind of play into each other. And that is essentially what I'm looking at this current moment in time. And so I suspect that we're going to have resolution on this in early November. Until then, what I'm watching is, of course, the daily. And as long as the daily remains pointed to the upside, I look at this as an indication that, the probabilities remain in favor of the upside continuation after a little bit of a short-term sideways and downside pullback. Again, big warning flag below 20,500. Full on trap confirmed below 20,000 bucks. At that point, it would be extremely, extremely nasty, most likely. All right, sweet. So that's going to do it for today. It's a little bit longer video than I expected, but all good in the hood. Want to be wishing you the best as always. Take care, much love, and see you hopefully soon.